Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you again, those that are joining us via Facebook. We appreciate that very much. We want to continue growing the audience, obviously, as much as we can in different vehicles, channels. However, it is a podcast, so we would love to have you download the podcast if you haven't done that yet. You could do that by going to iTunes, anywhere really online, and just type in Real Estate Radio Live or podcast Real Estate Radio Live, and you'll see several places you could download the podcast. The focus is always the same, and has been for almost 8 years, whether we're doing a radio or podcast, and that's education and information. And what that means is our goal, our objective, really our passion here is to educate and inform you, the consumer, so that you make wise decisions in and around your real estate and all kinds of aspects of real estate. You could imagine all the things that are involved in that: buying, selling, financing, constructing, all kinds of different things. So with that, speaking of real estate, it is Wednesday, and that must mean it's the two Italian guys talking
Yeah, can't forget the Italian part. What's
the best part.
Yeah, that's the best part over here.
That's the best part. We need to.
What are we doing over here, Joe?
Grant, we need to get some audio on part of this, where when Mike and I come in, we get the Italian music. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Or maybe a little Godfather stuff going on.
My buddy actually just bought me this. It's like a little music box with the Godfather theme on it. So that's pretty cool. I'll bring it in one of these days.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I'll just play it on the microphone.
I'll just digress for just a second. Continue sending that. So that's a movie. I asked someone the other day, if you're flipping through channels, what are the top 3 movies you have to stop and watch no matter what? And The Godfather is for me, and my wife still says, that's ridiculous. Why do you watch that thing so many times?
Because it's the best movie ever made. Come on, 1 and 2. Let's not talk about 3. 1 and 2.
Right.
I actually heard and this is all has to do with real estate. No, but I actually heard that there's a thing where they cut 1 and 2 up where it makes it chronological.
Oh, really?
So you can watch, because you know how there's a lot of flashbacks and going back. So they actually combine both movies and cut it in a way where you can watch the whole thing in almost chronological order.
Wow.
That was kind of cool.
That is cool.
But it'll take you like 5 hours to watch.
Last thing on movies, we'll move to real estate. Jack Ryan, you got to watch it, right? I mean,
the Netflix special? Yeah, it's good.
I think it's
really
Prime.
Good.
I think it might be Prime, but man, it's good.
Yeah.
It is a good show. All right, let's talk about real estate. Today, Mike and I are going to be talking about dispelling the myths of real estate. And so what do we mean by that? Really, a lot of the stuff comes up on Mike's side, whether you're buying or selling or, anything conceptually like, I didn't know you could do that. I mean, this happens a lot in his business, my business, jointly. We hear this a lot. And the problem is, as far as I think, and we'll see what Mike has to think about it, I think the part of the issue is that there's so much noise in general out there, whether it's the internet, TV, radio, podcast. Of course, this is the podcast you want to listen to. But all the other ones on real estate. No, there's a lot of noise.
There's no other podcasts on real estate.
There's so much noise, and then you have a lot of people who profess to be experts, but they don't really do their homework, or they say stuff to get shock value factor, or they say something to get you to call instead of really informing or educating them. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of this stuff that I think people might be surprised, and sometimes maybe you're not if you understand real estate and financing. But in general, some of the things that we hear, right, are Mike, your clients, or my clients will go, I had no idea that existed, or really, you could do that?
Yeah. And talking about the noise, I literally just 5 minutes ago, pulling up into the driveway here, I heard a commercial from a large internet source for real estate.
Yeah.
The last part of the name is Finn.
Okay.
I'll just give that out there. They have a commercial about, a listing fee of 1%.
I've heard that, too.
And the fact that they get more money for their listing. They'll get the seller more money, which is just completely not true.
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting. And when you talk about noise, that's the noise that, there's a lot of it out there.
Well, that's actually a good point, because we could talk about that as one of the myths. And I think the myths is let's talk about that first. That would be all the false advertising and marketing that takes place.
Yeah.
In both industries, right?
There are, yeah. Absolutely.
So Mike just brought up a good one, blank fin. I'm not sure you could add the numbers, I should say the letters to that, but a company advertises a 1% listing fee, and the reason they'll say is they'll focus on, we could save you all this additional money. But you notice what they don't talk about, and when you dig in deeper and you really find out, is what kind of service component is there, right?
Yeah.
What kind of service are you really going to get? Is it kind of like pulling up in a gas station or pulling up anywhere and someone just says you're on your own if you have a question for someone? Sorry, the guy in the booth, right?
Yeah.
It's soundproof, so you're banging on it trying to see.
So this is a perfect segue, and we didn't plan this, I promise. Speaking of the same company, right. I have some new construction listings in Santa Clara, which those are taking a little bit longer to sell. And so this same agent from this company has showed it multiple times to multiple clients.
Okay.
And so I've been following up with her, and so I called her today, actually, and then she was with the client, so then she called me back. But what she said was, I'm just a showing agent. So you have to talk to the buying agent, because I called her earlier to say, hey, you showed this house like at least a half dozen times to different people. Let's put a deal together, Let's get it done. Let's not keep wasting each other's time.
So what's a showing agent?
They just show houses. They don't do anything else. So then she's like, no, you have to talk to the buyer's agent to see what they're going to do. Because then this company also they have listing agents, they have showing agents, they have
here's my guess.
Open house agents, which if you've ever been to this company's open houses, they're terrible. So when you talk about, getting back to your original point about levels of service, you're not really a real estate agent if you're just doing showings. There's much more to it than that.
Well, I think what's happening, and it'd be interesting to look into it a little further, and I will, but you know what I bet's happening is that they're hiring someone like minimum wage, or right?
Yeah, it's salary.
And that's their showing agent.
That's it.
So
that's
they
all
don't have a
do.
license.
Right.
They don't have any idea.
They have to have a license, but...
Do they? Even to open the door?
Yeah, you have to have a license to open the key box.
Okay.
But you need to know how to do other stuff. I don't get it.
But
I don't understand.
No, I'm a showing agent.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was just weird. That was the first time I'd really delved into that, the way that they have their whole thing set up.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting.
Well, there's a lot. That's just one example. And again, there's so many things that come up. In a changing world, everything's changing. Real estate's changing, lending, everything around us is changing. And that is for sure. But some of the stuff that comes up, and one of the reasons this is, I would say, it's not that it's more important, but it's more critical, I'll say, when you're in a transaction like this, because it's again, you hear it a lot, but it's true. For most people, this is the most expensive decision they'll make.
Yeah,
they're taking on a liability, a loan typically, that's a lot of money, and you're signing on an agreement that I'm going to pay this loan and pay it back. I'm not going to be late. I'm going to make my property taxes. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I know some people, we all take it for granted if we've been in this business a long time, but it's a huge commitment. I mean, you're saying for the next 30 years, in most cases, I know people... But seriously,
marriages
never
don't last that long.
That's true. That is very true. So this is a big decision, and that's one of the reasons it's really important. You hear Mike and I talk about it all the time. Pick the right team, get yourself educated, informed, and align yourself with the right people to make this transaction. So the one, I hear a bunch of them all the time, and we could go back and forth and just talk about it. A lot of the ones that I hear are, I understand you have to have 20% down to buy a home, and it's absolutely not true. So just so you know out there, again, you do not have to have 20% down. Now, there's a little asterisk next to that when I say that. What I mean is that if you can't afford a home by putting, less than 20% down, then that's true, right? So, but I'm suggesting, letting everybody know, now in some cases, there's 100% financing, depending on the counties. They have some programs for first-time home buyers. It's a little difficult in Silicon Valley because of the home prices. VA financing, still 100% financing is available to veterans, either current, retired, or active. Then you have 3%, 3.5%, 5%. Really, it just climbs up the ladder. And this is all depending on what you could qualify for. But the main thing, the point I want to get across with dispelling this myth is that, no, you can buy a house with less than 20% down, and in some cases, 0 down, and in many cases, a lot less than 20% down, depending on how you qualify.
And talk about, I think I'm trying to figure out the myth, but talk about maybe the myth with rates. And I think that people are they're very rate sensitive. You know, the APR rate, what does that include? I can save an eighth here at this bank or a quarter here at this bank because I bank there. So maybe talk about the myth behind the rate and people being quote-unquote rate sensitive.
Yeah, similar to what real estate agents go through on the pricing. So on rates, we get that all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but most of the time you'll get people that say, Joe, you know, either refinancing or going to contract for a purchase. I was just on bankrate.com. I was just on, you know, cashcall.com or something, and I heard on the radio that I could get this for this. And in most cases, it's unrealistic, so I know right away there's something up. There's something going on. And I hate to say this because I think most companies and most people are ethical and they try to do what's right, but I could tell you that there's still a percentage of people that on purpose, it's very misleading advertising and marketing, but they do it. You could never prove that they do it on purpose, but they do it on purpose. And the reason why is they need to get the phone ringing or the emails coming, or, for instance, in order to pay the kind of money to advertise on the internet or on radio and different things, Mike, you have to, unfortunately, lie creatively to get that phone ringing or to get people to email you, right? I mean, that's kind of the way it works. And
but we don't do that on podcasts.
No, we don't do that.
We don't
Not
do
at
that
all.
here.
No BSing.
That's right.
Especially the two Italian guys.
That's right.
So what you want to do when you get those quotes, I tell people all the time, first of all, don't take anything serious verbally. Do not take anything serious verbally when it comes to rates.
Absolutely. Just like you don't take a verbal offer seriously in a real estate transaction. It means nothing. Yeah. It means nothing.
No, I mean, like if someone would say to you, Mike, what are you going to accept for this house, right? Yeah. What do you know? Well, give me an offer.
Yeah.
Put it in writing.
Write it up. Write it up.
So, number one, don't take anything verbally. If you do, that's fine. But if anybody is worth their grain of salt, anybody is professional, ethical, and cares about their business and cares about their reputation, they might tell you something. Like I might tell someone on the phone, hey, listen, if you have this credit score, this down payment, this, I could tell you your rates are probably going to be in this range. Yeah. But I'll tell them right away, too, keep in mind, there's no way that I could give you a quote unless I get your paperwork, pull your credit, do these things. Then I could give you a really good idea of what that interest rate would be. So someone that tells you an interest rate or fees without getting all the information is very misleading. And there's so much. The last thing I'll say about this particular one, Mike, is this is another one that comes up a lot, actually. And it's probably one of my favorite and one of the most interesting ones. All right. Well, the guy at B of A said he could do a no-cost loan for me.
Oh, yeah.
And see, unfortunately, again, this is a moment for educating and really informing you. There's no such thing as a no-cost loan. And people, wait a minute, he told me it's a no-cost loan. So even when you're showing, this is the worst part. So they could show you a good faith estimate, and it could show, let's say, $3,500 closing costs, $3,500 credit. And to them, like, oh, well, Joe, it's a no-cost loan. But what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is they're charging you a higher interest rate. Right. So that they could pad that on the backside so they could give you that. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad deal. Some people might say it's a short-term loan, right, Joe? I'm going to have the house for 2 years. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. But, again, you need to know there's no such thing as a free loan.
There is not. There's nothing free in life, as they say.
So that's another one that comes up. Can you think of any others from the real estate side that consumers are misled by?
I think that you mentioned it before we got on the show about the right time to list a home. And I would say that, at least in the area, a big portion of our listenership is local, Silicon Valley. Right. I would say around here, there really is not a bad time to list property due to weather and demand. And, I mean, I would say the slower time in real estate in Silicon Valley is from Thanksgiving to Super Bowl weekend, which you guys have heard us talk about a lot on the show. But across the country, I mean, things are different with snow and showing property and whatnot. I mean, sometimes people can't. I mean, what's happening in the polar vortex? I mean, people are freezing to death outside, so probably not a great time to go and show a lot of property. But I would say, for the most part, it's a supply and demand situation, so you have to assess that. But locally in Silicon Valley, I would say that any time's a good time to list your home.
The other one you and I talked about the other day, and I want to bring it up again because I think it's worthy, and you hear this sometimes too, is remember, someone will say, well, I really want to go with Jim Smith, my listing agent, because he's the neighborhood realtor.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. So what happens is what we call in the business farming.
Okay.
They're farming your neighborhood, which sometimes they live there, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just pick a geographical area out on a map and then just start sending you a bunch of mail and crap, right? Basically drop stuff on your door or door knock or cold call, do all sorts of things to kind of, get in front of you on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So the thing about that is when you actually look at the numbers, most people that are quote-unquote an area expert or are farming a neighborhood are really have a very small percentage of the actual listings in the area if you run the numbers, because it's very hard to get a stranglehold on every single house in a neighborhood, basically.
Right.
So that is kind of it's a myth, really, because it's not that hard to look up the data and be an area expert of a neighborhood. You can look up the comps and see what's going on and find out, okay, that is what it is. But
so would you say, this is what I would do only because I know the business and you do too, but if someone said, right, because again, we get to this verbal thing.
Yeah.
So if you have a real estate agent that's meeting with a potential client that they might be listing their home, and the real estate agent says, hey, listen, you're seeing my names or seeing my billboard on pictures on this and this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I am the local real estate pro in this area.
Right.
And I am going to get you the most money. So when someone says that, the consumer should say, what? How do you prove
how are
that?
you gonna make me the most money?
Or can they back that up?
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm a consumer, I'd say, do me a favor, if that's the case, show me the last 10 houses you sold, right, in this area.
Yeah.
And then let's do some comparisons.
Yeah, and show me what you got those people. I think there's some value in being an area, knowing a neighborhood or knowing the amenities, and there's value there. But there's more value in the marketing plan you bring forth to a listing and the negotiation tactics you have. Even the real value is your negotiation skills as a listing agent. And I would ask them about that more so than knowing what the next street over is called. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff is not as important as what I've said before about the negotiating.
Yeah. The one that comes up a lot, and you and I talk about a lot because we agree in terms of treating it like a business and taking care of people the way they should in our business, and that is the one comes up, well, why can't I just use my aunt or my uncle or do this or that, Mike, because they're going to sell it for this, and I know they're really not a full-time agent, but they're going to give me a deal.
Right.
So how do you kind of walk them through that process?
There's a perfect example. Another good agent in my office, he had a neighbor.
Okay.
Literally his next-door neighbor told him, we're going to sell the house, but my cousin was going to list it, and he said, hey, I totally understand, but let me just give you a second opinion, no strings attached and whatever. And so he went over and he gave him this professional presentation, which I know he has, and he blew the other person out of the water. Absolutely, the relative just didn't have anything, didn't know what they were doing. When you're not in it full time, you're not treating it like a business, you probably don't have your whole plan dialed in, and you're flying by the seat of your pants, basically.
Right.
And so it's a valid point. You really need to work with someone that treats it like a business and knows what they're doing and has a plan.
Right.
And I find more often than not, people that work with family members or someone closely related to them or friend that they just are working with because, they know them, it's not often in the best interest.
Yeah. I would agree. I'll tell you another one that comes up a lot in my business and I'm passionate about because I just helped another client today, and I'll go through that example, is, Joe, I was told that there's really no way I could buy a house before I sell my house. That one comes up a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And in fairness to everybody, different, but again, you treat this like a business, you educate yourself, you understand it, but probably won't surprise you when I say this, but you'd be surprised that I just took a call today. It's up in Los Altos. This client's got a $3.3 million house.
Yep.
And they're
probably a teardown for 3
It is, actually.
in Los Altos.
Big lot, but a teardown.
Which is crazy, but yeah.
So here's what she told me. She says, I met with 2 or 3 agents, and they're telling me the only way I could do this is I need to get my house on the market. And I'm saying, well, tell me a little more about it. She goes, well, here's what I want to do. I want to downsize, so we were looking to buy a house for 1,516, right?
Yeah.
But my house is not ready. We're not quite. We want to take some time. Plus, we don't want the pressure of having to sell it if we don't want to. And everybody keeps telling me you can't do it. And it's kind of interesting. So I walked her through the process of it. And so let me just give you this example since it's real, and it was today. Clients own a property in Los Altos. It's worth about $3.3. They owe very little on it, $250,000.
Yeah.
They said they want to buy a place for $1.5, $1.6, and they want the ability to not be able to sell it before they buy for many different reasons, which a lot of people do. So we're able to structure financing because there's so much equity in that exiting property.
Yeah, it makes
very little
like
risk.
50%
right?
loan to value, basically.
Well, more than that.
Or
it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we take the two properties. Long story short is we could provide them 100% financing on the purchase.
Yeah.
And the only reason we could do that is because there's so much equity in their exiting property that's very little risk for the investor.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So this sounds funny, but think about this. So these people are going to be able to keep their home, get 100% financing on the $1.6 million purchase. And she even couldn't believe it until I ran the program through it. And she had no idea. And this is an educated person. She's been around. She owned this house for 15 years, owned another house, and didn't know something like this existed. And she's completely excited and going to move forward and get pre-approved on it so they could go out and look without doing this. So, again, is this for everybody? No. Can everybody do it? No.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd be surprised for people that have owned their home for a period of time, if you have a lot of equity, and I mean a lot, if you have 50% or more equity in your home, there's a really good chance that you could lever it as such to potentially buy a home without selling your home. And there's some other creative things around it that we don't have time to get into today, but that's another one I hear a lot that, again, if you're out there, it's not true. There are options if you really want to try to buy a home before you sell your place.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great example, and I just always Los Altos is just a crazy this is a crazy market. It's insane.
Yeah,
there.
It's probably on a busy street.
Yeah.
Tear down.
I sold the teardown in Los Altos last year, and it was almost $3 million.
That's
for
great.
Dirt.
It does almost seem to be that market up there is unique. I'm not sure if there's ever such a thing as softening in that market.
No, in Los Altos and the Los Altos Hills, it's a
beautiful area.
Yeah, it is nice.
That's for sure. Any other ones you could think of on the real estate side? I could probably go through a whole.
Well, yeah. I mean, how much time do we have, Joe? We can be here till
about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
6 minutes.
We got it. 5 hours might be what I need. But no, I think overall, again, I mean, the theme of the show and your show has always been education, information, and I think that it never hurts to just have a conversation, start the conversation like the lady today,
right,
and just find out more options and things that you can do and make a better, more informed decision. And like you said earlier, it's not like you're buying a cup of coffee or selling something at a flea market. You're literally, it's people's biggest, most people's biggest asset of their life, of their lifetime.
Yeah.
So why not ask those questions and find out? And just a quick example today is like representing a buyer on a purchase potentially and thinking about doing their inspections. Why not spend the $500 or $600 on inspections when you're spending over $1 million in this area? To make sure the house isn't going to crumble around you when you move in.
No, it's
so it's
very
things
true.
like that are really important, and you need to consider.
Yeah, a couple of others that come to mind I'm going to bring up just because they're really prevalent in this kind of industry with financing. I hear this one a lot too. I'm retired. I understand that, Joe, I want to try to get a loan as quick as possible. Believe it or not, I hear this. We're thinking we want to purchase a home right away or refinance because we're getting ready to retire. And that's not true. You can get financing when you're retired. Now, again, income is income. You've heard me say this before.
Or even alimony, you could get it based on
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, rental income. That's
rental
income, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people seriously that don't have a traditional job, don't even have a job, but because of their investments or in several rental properties, that's income.
If it's showing on your tax records.
Yeah.
Now, if you're getting rental income in the form of cash.
Yeah. Unlike Donald Trump, you're going to have to show your tax returns.
Exactly.
So this is the thing I hear a lot. So if you're listening to this podcast, someone that's retired or thinking about, don't panic. Seriously, don't freak out. Give me a call if you need some help on that. You can get financing when you're retired. So that's another one. The other one that I hear a lot is, I understand that my credit's kind of weak for whatever reasons. I should maybe wait till my credit's at, let's just say, for example, my credit's 620, Joe. Everybody tells me, or when I look at it, they said I should wait till I get a 700 credit score. No, not necessarily. You get financing, believe it or not. If your credit's all the way down in the 500s, I know it's hard to believe, but now you're not going to have great interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want to buy a home, or if you have a scheduled, or I should say a plan, Mike, to improve your credit over the next 12 months, and then you refinance out of that once your credit gets better. So that would be the other thing that I hear. Don't automatically assume because your credit, if it's less than perfect, it's not that great, that's fine. There's still a lot of financing options for that as well.
My dad always says, when you assume...
That's right.
You know what the rest of the saying
right,
is.
Yeah. When are we gonna do a show over there at the restaurant?
We should do one. I was just there. I was just with them a couple hours ago, and
give a shout out.
It's always an education.
Those that may not know, give a shout out to your dad and his restaurant. And
if you're ever in town, you can go to Giorgio's Italian Food and Pizzeria,
great
or
place.
Frankie, Johnny, and Luigi's too. Make sure you get the pizza or the sausage bread, whatever you want. We got it.
Ask for John.
Ask for John, yeah.
And see what kind of martini.
Yeah. You need have at least 2 or 3 dirty martinis while you're there too.
All right. I hope we provided a little bit of education along with the fun and the goofing off we did today. But before we kind of duck out again, just a reminder, this was really a show designed around dispelling some of the myths in real estate lending. There's a lot of them. And really the last thing I'll say, and I'm not going to speak for Mike, but I think he feels the same. If you're in doubt or if you're not quite sure, ask around and find someone you could trust. And anytime you could call one of us, doesn't matter. Even if you're working with someone else, I tell people this all the time.
Yeah.
Even if someone's going to work with someone else or they're going to, and I said, doesn't matter. Use me as a sounding board. Call me back. Maybe there's some ideas you could bounce off me.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. And that's really the message is work with someone you trust. Doesn't matter. But if you have that gut feeling and you're not quite sure and you think you're being misled, just, go with your gut and double check before you make that big financial decision.
Yeah, and ask the right questions. And like I said, lean on us.
Yeah.
We did a show one time about what questions, remember that? The top 10 questions to ask an agent before hiring him. And
that's right.
We got so many calls on that. I remember it was like crazy. But ask the right questions, and if you don't know what questions to ask, call us or Google it.
There you go. So if they want to reach you, get a hold of you, what's the best place to do that?
Go to my website, MikeDCells.com, or you can always call 408-630-0101.
Great. Those of you know how to get a hold of me, Joe at 𝗪radiolive.com, or you could always go to the website, 𝗪radiolive.com. Until next time, thanks again for checking in. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit 𝗪radiolive.com. That's 𝗪radiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at 𝗪radiolive.com.